Today, had a great discussion with a friend of mine. He's on the Newcastle City Council serving Ward 4. We are talking to Mr. Councilman Aaron Dicken. All right. So, hey, welcome everybody. Welcome Aaron Dicken, Councilman Aaron Dicken, that is. So you are over, is it the Ward 4?
Ward 4.
Ward 4 here in Newcastle, setting as the young man on the city council.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you can say that much longer.
So I remember, I faintly remember, because we didn't really get to know each other until you started to run. And then back a handful of years ago, you ran against former mayor, right? Sherman Bowles.
And Jeremy Beach.
What's that?
Sherman Bowles and Jeremy Beach. It was a 3-way race.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And then you came out on top as the young whippersnapper back in the day, right? And
Yep.
So lots happened, right, since that time. And you and I have engaged in many conversations, and obviously people know you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, right? And
right.
So ran for mayor last year and all of that. So good times. But hey, so we got a few minutes here, and as you know, we've talked off and on about city stuff, and I've kept up with you, and you've kind of kept up with me. And so we're going to start right out the gate here, talk about just a few topics. Obviously, I have a short amount of time, but I'm sure we will keep in contact and get you back on here to keep us updated from the governmental aspect, right? Because it is true. Campaigning's is one thing, governing is a totally different thing. It's easy to shout from the stands. It's much more difficult when you have to work in the inner workings of the system. We'll just call it that. But right off the bat, I want you to describe to us a little bit. You said something in a meeting not long ago when we were dealing with employee insurance and some of the changes of retiree insurance. And you made a comment about trust. And you said something about losing trust over the past 8 years. And I won't repeat everything you said. Let me let you talk about that.
Yeah.
What did you mean at that moment?
Right. I mean, at that moment, so I think it's hard because being on any board really is kind of like this. And I mean, obviously you have experience from the county perspective. The governments, whether that's federal, state, whatever, local, is they're divided, and you only have certain parameters to work within. Yeah. So all of us that are on the council are in the office day to day. I think we could, if we didn't have full-time jobs and other stuff going on, we could track day to day spending. If we were retired and didn't have families and things like that. So we're really just getting snapshots. And I think, when I was elected in, like you said, things have changed immensely and the focus has shifted. And I think you could probably argue that the council has had to wade into some conversations that maybe we shouldn't. But I also know that
what did you just say? The councils maybe did what?
Wade into some conversations that maybe we shouldn't. I'm sure some people.
You don't have the authority to.
Right.
But you are ambassadors to the community.
And that's, I think, the fuzzy, where the line gets fuzzy, right? Yeah. Like, we're ambassadors to the community. We're supposed to, make sure that the community, and I've even said advocates for the employees. We've had to jump into those conversations because at the end of the day, end of the day, to quote Jeremiah Morrill, who's our other on the other leg of
great Jeremiah Morrill.
Yeah, right. I have a platform, I have a microphone, and so I mean, I'm going to voice my opinion, and I think people have seen that, whether it's been rising to the top or stirring things up. I know that that's kind of what I've done, and not everybody agrees, and that's fine. But it's just a matter to me to get information out there, whether it's buying property and having the intent to buy property with taxpayer money, and or if it's insurance. I try my best to get answers on the record, just
Yeah.
because, I mean, that should be the truth, right? If it's on the record. But I mean, there have been times where I've heard one thing and then, it ends up being another. And I know that's part of the process too, when you're working with several people, and communication is key. And so, I mean, I think the context of my statement in that meeting, and people can obviously go back and see it and hear it,
I'll put
is
the clip
that,
on.
yeah, okay.
I'll attach the clip.
Great.
I've lost a lot of trust over the last 8 years. I think that's why I'm thinking the way that I am. Just in what I've seen, questions I've asked that I've known answers to and get a different answer. That's kind of why I'm asking and thinking the way that I am. But I also trust the bargaining units to look out for not just their active guys who do a lot for us, but their retirees who've done a lot for us, stuff that none of us in this room have done. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Is that, we're hopeful that, things are being taken care of, and
Yeah.
decisions are being made accordingly. And I know that it's a tough position because, with being in a insurance deficit, to correct that, there's going to be some tough decisions, and it's made tougher, I think, because you're of negotiations with unions. So a CEO can go in and make a decision on the insurance and say this is the way it's going to be, but when you're dealing with bargaining units, it's a little bit different.
Yeah. And two, so I know what you mean by not being involved in all the daily operations. So as you mentioned, I was on the county. Most people watching this know I served on the county council for 9 years, and then I was a quitter. So, so I mean, preparing for a mayor's race. I mean, but anyways, before I quit, I do know, I remember one year budget time is right after budgets. The state came back and said, hey, you need to cut, I think it was around $800,000 from the budget. Now I was new and I was like, oh, okay. So I assumed we was going to have a meeting about that since the council served as the fiscal body for the county.
Right, which is totally different from the city. And I know we've talked about
it is,
that.
very much so. And a lot of people don't understand that.
I know, and they won't, and that's fine. But I just want to insert that when we can.
How about that? That would be a future episode to.
There you go.
Talk about the differences.
Yeah, government class.
So, but so anyways, I let time go by and we never talked about it. So we was in a council meeting and I mentioned that. I said, hey, what about that 800,000 that we were supposed to? And the reply given to me by the auditor at that time, which is not the current auditor, was, oh, we took care of that. That was an odd statement. So yeah. I talked to someone from the State Board of Accounts later at some kind of seminar or conference, and I described what happened. And I was like, shouldn't the council have discussed that? And they said, look, all we do is look at the paper. If the auditor's signature's on it, that's what we take. And I'm like, interesting. So that was kind of my first introduction to how things work, right? And how kind of ineffective, like some people think State Board of Accounts like really gets in there and does things, right? And they do audits, they do checks, but at the end of the day, they're just like, hey, we're just a reporting agency. Don't do that again. And then life goes on, right? Typically.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think in terms of the overarching fiscal standing, I guess, of the city, I mean, I see things like I've had pretty regular conversations with Ashley. She's been great at answering questions that I have.
Ashley's really turning some things around, I think, based upon what I've seen in 2024. So my hope is that continues, and I think it
right. And you know, I mean, to be fair, I had conversations and open dialogue with Brenda Greider too, but
Yeah, yeah,
Ashley has turned around these questions, and she's clarified things for me. And you can just tell every time I talk with her, she's feeling more and more confident
yeah, right.
because it is a learning curve. I
Oh,
mean, we can't
yeah,
expect to with what that position pays. And I can't remember what we if we've talked about this before, but
yeah,
you know, you this is a multi-million-dollar budget,
yeah.
and really to get somebody with book experience and somebody in the private sector
Oh,
that would manage a book, like their salary would be 2 or 3 times probably,
yeah, yeah. Well, I was
you know,
gonna
what
say
that
probably
position
minimum a
pays.
100,000, right? I mean,
Oh, I would
minimum.
assume, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, excited that she's getting more and more confident,
yeah,
I think that, and obviously, as we know, it takes all the parts being on the
yeah,
same page.
yeah.
You know, I know there was some question, like, we just approved last meeting, $2,000 to the Renaissance Festival,
Renaissance. Yeah,
out of Riverboat,
yeah,
and, you know, I'll stand by that decision and any decision like that because of the tourism and the dollars that come into the community. Even
yeah.
there's a value for community notoriety and getting somebody in town that hasn't been here before to see what we're about. I mean, I think all of that has value.
Sure.
But again, it's all three different sects of the government that
It
are
really is.
working
Yeah,
together to, you know,
absolutely.
be on the same
And
page.
so on the before we get off this
Hmm.
lost trust. So I personally
Hmm.
lost a lot of trust when I was campaigning for mayor.
Hmm.
Um, because I got to know there's that because I was doing more digging, because
Hmm.
obviously I was always been on the county side. But once I
Right.
get into digging on the city side, I learned some things. And then you you know things,
Hmm.
but then when you hear someone answer the question or answer the topic,
Right.
it's like, oh, that's not how it really is.
Right.
But again, you're kind of in a position that it is what it is, right? Because what are you
Right.
going to do? Like be like, you're a liar,
Yeah.
because they may have a an official position also, and you have to respect each other's position. And then at the same
Right.
time, here's another thing I learned. There's things I learned that I don't really publicly talk about because you would literally have to throw some people under the bus, or
Hmm.
you know,
Right.
and there's some people that are just caught in the middle of things, and
Right.
it is what it is. I know. Again, I'm going to jump off this. I'll let you
Okay.
comment, but then jump into a different topic.
Hmm.
But I know there was 100% lies told about me during the campaign. But then you find yourself, you have to, you can't put those
Right.
fires out. I mean, you're spending your time trying to figure out, okay, who'd they tell or who knows what, and you can't spend your time
Yeah.
putting those fires out. So you just got to be who you are, stick to
Mhm.
the plans, keep your focus, keep your eyes straight ahead, and just be you, right? And then kind of let
Right.
your actions speak for themselves, and kind
And
of,
that could be, I mean, you could do a whole other episode about campaigning and how different. And I know we've
oh,
talked about
yeah,
that.
yeah,
You know, in a small community like Newcastle, it's going to be different than any other community. And I always
sure.
tell people, actually, talking with somebody who's run for Congress that's I know through relation.
Uh-huh.
And they said, you know, we want to talk to you about communicating the platform and points. I've run one campaign in my life, like because I've been unopposed twice. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want to think that I know everything
right.
of about campaigning. But no, I think that when it comes to trust, you want to give people the benefit of the doubt. That's who I am as a person. That's how I was raised by my parents.
Yeah,
Um, and it is a little disappointing when you hear one thing from a source that you absolutely trust and would lie down in the street for, and then find get an official answer that's totally different.
yeah,
But to your point, that's part of the machine. Unfortunately, you could dig your heels in and fight and fight and fight that one thing, like that's the hill you're going to die on, or you could note that as a litmus test, have conversations, and then move on, knowing and being a little bit wiser.
Good
It's all
point.
a learning process, and
Yeah.
each year is going to be different than the first. So
yeah, absolutely, good point. That's a good way to describe it for sure. So we got a few more minutes left. I did. Okay, let's talk about, just very briefly, because there's really not much to say on it, community crossing grant.
Yeah.
Local road funding. And I know that since it was instituted in 2016, the county has got that money every single year.
Yeah.
I mean, we made sure to get it. So this year, there's $1.5 million available from the state of Indiana. And I admit they kind of bribe us with our own tax money, but it's a way to recoup the money we pay into the pot. If you don't apply, you're literally taking your community's money and letting it go somewhere else.
Right.
Newcastle made sure to apply in 2023. For some reason, there was something going on that year. I think that was, anyways. Well, but we haven't applied in the last 2 years, and I know you had made mention of that. So, from your seat, just describe that real quick. Why aren't we applying?
And I meant to reiterate this up front too. I mean, I'm not on here representing anybody other than myself.
Absolutely.
I am not. I don't work for the city necessarily. It is an interesting position because I'm there to represent the people that put me in that position. I feel strongly about that. But also, it's all about working together. So my thought is, if you want to, and again, I don't know anything in terms of price per yard or whatever, however you measure
it's
asphalt
expensive nowadays.
I know it's expensive. And so I know one part of it is how much road can we pave with, let's say $500,000. Okay, well, we could apply and get $1 million, from my understanding, and pave 2 times the amount.
You have to match
right
it.
Or you could save the 500,000, apply next year, which means if you're really truly saving that money and you're going to not pave any roads that year, would be my assumption, you apply with $1 million and you get $2 million to pave roads. And I know that you can pave so much more with that. But if you do it 500,000 in 1 year and get $1 million and pave $1 million worth of roads, and then the next year you have 500,000, you apply and you get $1 million and pave $1 million worth of roads, that's still $2 million worth of roads. Now, I know that's on the assumption that you would get it every year, which is hard to assume, but I had a conversation, this has been years ago, with Tom Saunders and Gene Lysing at that time, because I was frustrated about the railroads. I was frustrated with the state, and again, this is a mechanism from the state to give us back our own money. And I'll be curious to see if this sticks around the next 4 years, because there's so much changing at the state level. I hadn't really thought about that until this conversation, but
no, me either, until just now.
But Gene Lysing had said, the state gives all these communities opportunities for money, and they just have to stick their hand out. We could do a whole other episode on how much crap that statement is. But at the same time, if that's the way the game is going to be played, then we need to stick our hand out and be getting that as much as we can. And not just when it comes to community crossings grants, but I know we do that in terms of Indiana landmarks and Okra grants when it comes to historic preservation for city-owned buildings, especially. I know that we work with Mike Kleinpeter. I can't remember the firm that he's with. And I think that I've heard we have a grant writer on staff, and I don't know if that grant writer is paid out of like administration fees from the grant itself. I know that's pretty common. But it's come up, and not just with me, but a couple other council people. Are we applying for grants for these types of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's there. You just got to go get it. Whether we like the way it's there or not doesn't matter, right? Because it is what it is. So with the last few minutes of time, so the hot topic is EMS. So I started learning about our system back in 2012 when I was getting involved in the county side. and there's a whole separate Newcastle side, county side. You know, people get that confused sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes the lines blur, and sometimes they completely separate. It literally just depends on, a lot of times, who's in the elected positions and who has certain oversights. It has shifted so many times over the past, few decades, right?
Yeah. I mean,
but-
even at the city side, even just within the last 4 or 5 years, because those elected people can appoint, you know, obviously the department heads and the chiefs and all that.
Exactly. So we find ourselves, I think it was the assistant chief that came to the meeting to do the presentation. The chief's always there, but he was in his, where he normally sits, and the assistant came up, gave the presentation, and began to open that box of, okay, here's the reality of where we're at. Right. And obviously it was a little bit of a contentious discussion, but it was a necessary discussion.
Right.
I noticed Councilman Peckinpah said that there would be a committee look at it. I believe he said the finance committee, which I would like to see you on. I don't know that you're on that. I would like to see you on that. However, do you have any thoughts on what you want to share with the public on where you, I know you got to be careful because it's such a monster right now and there's so many different opinions, but do you have any thoughts you would like to share from your perspective on where you think this might go in reality?
Well, and where I think it might go in reality compared to, you know, waters I'd like to wade in. I think
different things sometimes, right?
Exactly. I think there's some merit into, and again, I have no experience with overseeing a department like this.
Right.
I just know when, you know, my grandma or my mom calls 911, I want there to be somebody there. Right. I think we all can agree with that.
Right.
But you're right. It's such a multifaceted thing where, you know, could the county and the city coalesce a little more and work in tandem a little better? Could EMS and fire, you know, also trade some services, I guess? And I know they work again in tandem right now, but I'd have to see and obviously consult with some other communities that already do this, what the challenges were, what the wins were doing that, what like actual money it saves. When it comes to that budget line, you know, years ago, it was supposed to be self-sustaining, but I also know things change. And that's what is great about that data that Assistant Chief presented, because it showed how much had changed, not just, you know, in our daily lives and the call volume because of that, but also, you know, on the government side, taking more transfers, not taking transfers, because it's just, I feel like the game is always changing, and the scenarios are always changing. What's that?
And the insurance side too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I know that on that budget line, we're still waiting for reimbursement from a grant for the building.
That's been like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
It's not.
I'm not sure what the hang up is.
It's not coming.
I'm not sure what the hang up is. I didn't ask Ashley like more detailed questions, but I don't know. So, I mean, where I think it's going to go, you got to know what the problem is to address it, right? Yes. And so I think we are getting that picture a little more clarity. And I think they are looking at making calculated decisions, which is huge, because you can make gut decisions all you want, but the calculated decisions is number one, going to be uncomfortable, and number two, going to make some progress. So I know that data was presented because we're looking at a change in the PRN pay, and that's understandable because again, we have to be staffed. But again, I have not managed a team that big, that large, especially when it comes to scheduling and man hours and payroll, stuff like that. I think all of that's going to have to be looked at pretty closely. But again, end of the day, when we call 911, we want EMS, you know, with as great of a system that they are. This is just, you know, those small details. Well, I guess small is a relative term. Details that, you know, come into play for sure.
Absolutely. Well, so Councilman Koger said one thing. that it 100% agree with. He said we can't continue to operate the way we're operating, and that's the fact of the matter.
Yep.
However, that being said, I believe that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from the public's standpoint, we are going to have to be patient. We're going to have to, and again, I've lost so much trust in the system, not the EMS system, but the system
just as a whole. Yeah, and I would even say outside local government.
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes way higher than that.
But we have to let the system work, right? That's our choice. That's our only choice right now. So it is my hope. I'm thrilled to see the conversation started. And it's my hope that all the players, because there's county players too, as you know, because they're going to be for more money from the county. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Right. Which, if they can show that it's meritable,
and I think they can.
Not?
Yeah, and I think they can. Yeah. So, but everyone is going to have to not play king of the mountain and leave junior high games to the junior high, and really come together and use some critical thinking and bit by bit, piece by piece. Let's put a good system together, because we do have some quality people. Like, we have some great paramedics, we have some great EMS.
Oh yeah.
I mean, top notch. But
very
the
community
system
minded.
they're trying to work in is dysfunctional now, and it's not working the way it used to work. So many outside things have changed.
Yeah. Some that we can't control, but again, knowing, and that's where that presentation showed me that they're plugged into all these changes that are happening that we can't control, and some that we obviously can too. But I think in terms of the system, I've been trying to focus on duality, right? Like, just because I disagree with something, I'm not going to go into the comments and call somebody a crook, because and this is just who I am. Even the stuff that I'm confident in, I try never to speak in totality with this all-encompassing 100% confidence.
We're really bad at that.
Yes, there may be a part where I'm mistaken. But also, like, giving them, I understand, and I think it just comes from a lack of trust in government, period. Local, state, federal, whatever. If it's government related, people don't want it.
100%. Yes.
But I don't know. Again, it's about working within the parameters and controlling what you can control, and making a good concerted effort, because these are all, I would argue that we're all community minded people, and I've always said that the goal is the same for all of us. Just how we get there.
It's how you get there.
The paths are different.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, from a council perspective, what can so you yourself are obviously just one vote of 7, but as a body, the council of Newcastle, Indiana, what say, other than advising and suggesting and keeping the public aware of what's going on, what can you do? What authority do you guys have, does the council have on this particular issue?
That's what I was going to ask. I didn't know if you were saying in general or
just on this particular issue, because we don't have time for the rest.
Yeah,
we have like 2 minutes, Aaron. 2 minutes.
This is one of those things. I mean, the council controls the salaries, right? So if it's understood, or it's the perception that part of it is we can't hire enough PRN people, and we're paying overtime because the PRN salary or hourly rate is too low. That's an ordinance, right? And that the ordinances, the resolutions, those are our wheelhouse. And so if we can up that ordinance, the percentage of the non-reverting fund, which again, it's 100% right now, because that was changed. That's in an ordinance. So if we want to change that and say, the budget's going to come into play to help EMS because 100% just isn't feasible, then that's an ordinance. And we, again, that's 7 votes, but it's, that's some way we can do it. When it
So
comes to,
they would keep their non-reverting fund, and then you would have to add additional funding.
well, it used to be like 50-50. So the revenue they brought in, they
Yes.
kept 50, the budget
Yes.
got 50. And it kind of tapered all the way to where they were going to keep 100%, but they weren't going to get anything, from the budget
Right,
because of
right.
that. And it's, like they said in the
But that
presentation, it's just
100%
not
not
feasible.
cutting it.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So it's a matter of, working that out. So when it comes to the actual percentage of their revenue that they keep and that goes into the budget, then we, would sort that out with ordinance. Obviously, we approve the budget. We can make suggestions and everything, and we can cut, but we can't add or replace. And so, that's part of it, I guess. But
Yes.
when it comes to scheduling,
so I have to chop it off because I'm currently not paying for my Zoom account that we're recording on.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
limited. But let's get together in another time, because you ended there with something we probably do need to do a whole episode on, is what are the limitations and duties of a city council? Because a lot of people don't understand that at all.
Right.
And what are the duties of a mayor? I learned some of that as I was running, and we'll talk about that. But Aaron, thank you. You've been a friend for a while. I know after this, we're both probably going to get hate mail, but you know what? The truth is, we have had many conversations over the years, and you've always been a friend, and I trust you, and you're a good family man, and you do care about the community. So I appreciate it. Thank you for taking time and sharing with people that maybe normally don't even listen to you.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Thank you for having me on. And I know, like you said, there's going to be people that probably disagree with me being here, but this is where I think as a whole, nationally in society, we've lost it. Like you and I definitely do not agree on everything.
Sure.
We've even had conversation, but because we want that relationship to be there,
Right.
we figure out a way around it, and it's fine, and it's not personal. But there's so many that are out there in Facebook and social media and etc. that there is no relationship. So it's easy to just let things fly. But these conversations with people that aren't going to agree with anything that I said today are part of it. Like just because they don't agree doesn't mean that I don't want them to hear my perspective and my perception and my opinion. And likewise, I feel like I'm pretty reachable. I'm pretty approachable, and I usually listen with an understanding ear. And again, at the end of the day, I may not do what you want. I may not agree with you, but I'm going to listen and give it thoughtful consideration. I think that's what it's all about, and what we need more of, not just in local government, definitely the state government, and definitely in Washington, D.C., because that's just been gone for a while.
Right. Hey, appreciate it, Aaron. Take care, brother. I love you,
we'll
man.
see you. Love you too. See ya.
Bye. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little discussion. Hope you learned some things, and probably have some questions. So feel free to ask those questions, and we'll definitely get Aaron back on, and we'll have more discussions in the future. And something I'd mentioned there, and he had mentioned, is the way things work. There are many that don't understand the difference between a county council and a city council. They don't understand the dynamics of that and what authority each position has. We don't know it all, but we do know some things. And there are some things that Mr. Dicken, for instance, does not have the authority over. However, he does recognize that he is an advocate still. And according to the job description of the city council, they are there to be that advocate for the community, and to also be an ambassador for the citizens that put them in office. So again, hope you learned something. I know you probably have more questions. Feel free to ask, and we will definitely be talking to Aaron again in the future.